Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 2000's Represent. We're in the middle of this cycle of 2004. In this episode, we're talking about a movie. In this episode, we're covering Kill Bill Volume 2. Last cycle for 2003, we covered Kill Bill Volume 1. I'll leave a link in the description to check that video out. I think this is kind of one of the only times where I pre-announced what I was doing next for a future episode. But yeah, these movies go hand in hand. So you have Volume 1 that came out in 2003, and then 6 months later in 2004, we got Volume 2. I most recently saw this back in theaters a few months back when a local theater did a double feature of Kill Bill Volume 1, followed immediately by Kill Bill Volume 2. It wasn't the whole bloody affair special cut that Quentin Tarantino did. It was just Volume 1 and then Volume 2. I believe the whole bloody affair is basically presented as one movie. I think they get rid of the recap that is in the beginning of this movie. So the beginning of the movie, it's just black and white, I believe black and white, of the bride driving, kind of explaining what she did in the previous movie, and then explaining what she's going to do in the upcoming movie in Volume 2, or what the movie that is about to unfold. So, yeah, Volume 2 is incredible, totally very different from the first movie. First movie, much more heavy on action. This one, much more heavy on kind of dialogue and character development. So two very distinct movies that are just still incredible. I had a great time on my most recent rewatch when I saw this as a double feature. I also have it, picked this up years ago when it came out. I think it was like maybe early 2005. Don't know what the release date was, but I have it. This is Volume 2 on DVD. So I don't have it on Blu-ray just yet. But we're going to get to our notes here, and then we'll get to the plot and all that. So let me just open this up. There we go. So Kill Bill Volume 2, first released April 16th, 2004. I saw this when it came out initially in 2004, and then, like I said, picked it up on DVD. I think you probably watched it on DVD like once or twice, and then most recently saw it a few months back at a double feature. Volume 1 I saw it when it came out. Again, saw it on DVD, and then saw it at Tarantino's Theater back in 2023, and then it's part of the double feature as well. Like I said, totally different kind of tone in filming to the first film. First film, very heavy on action, an homage to martial arts films. There's still martial arts elements in this one, but yeah, Volume 1 is much more focused on the action, especially like the last like third of the movie, where she is battling the Crazy 88 at the kind of restaurant, and then dealing with Oren Isi. You have a great fight in this movie between her and Daryl Hannah in a very confined space. She deals with Bill as well. There is like a martial arts like training montage as well. I love the way that they shot the. She's training with Pai Mei in this movie, and kind of like the color grading, or don't know if they use different film stock or how they achieve this, but it looks like kind of I say low quality, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It looks like the way the coloring looked in kind of like old martial arts films, like from like the 70s specifically. Because when I saw at Tarantino's, I was there back in 2021 as well, at the New Beverly Cinema, and I went there for a martial arts double feature on a Monday night, and they showed A Man Called Tiger and then the Bruce Lee Super Dragon, and it had the same kind of color style as the martial arts training montage in this film. So obviously an intentional choice there by Tarantino to make it look like a time period specific martial arts film. Like we mentioned in the first part of the Volume 1 video from 2003, this one is set. I wrote it down in the last one. Let me see, 2003. This is set in Tarantino's movie universe, which is the universe. Basically, it's the movies that the characters from his other films, like Pulp Fiction or thinking of Jackie Brown's a different one because Jackie Brown is an Elmore Leonard thing. But like the characters from Pulp Fiction would go to a movie theater to see the Kill Bill films. Like Vincent Vega would be sitting in a theater, be watching this. Other characters from like obviously time period being different, but like Cliff Booth is in the realer than real universe, and he would go to watch something like this in the theaters. So again, yeah, this Kill Bill is part of the movie universe for Tarantino's films. Let's see here. A lot of this also it just feels like a character study, specifically of the bride, but also a character study for Bill, a character study for Bud, played by Michael Madsen, who recently passed away. A little bit of character study for Daryl Hannah's character of El Driver. So yeah, definitely more character focused as opposed to action focused in Volume One. Everybody gets a lot of backstory in this, and to kind of piggyback off that, Tarantino has a quote here. Let me actually just bring it up. I typed it up earlier, where he said he basically saved the character development of the bride for this film. So, says as far as the first half is concerned, I didn't want to make her sympathetic. I wanted to make her scary. Because basically, kind of like actions speak louder than words. So her actions in the first movie are incredibly violent. I mean, they're pretty violent in this one too. But there's no real kind of backstory. You just know she's out for revenge because this group of people that she used to work with left her for dead, basically. In this one, we find out why the Bills team did what they did, but also just a lot of backstory between, specifically Bill and the bride. So you have like this movie definitely informs kind of her actions from Volume One, because there's a lot. I got like again a lot of backstory there. Apparently, this was pushed back from original release date was supposed to be February 20th of 2004, and it got pushed back to April 16th. And I think I was reading that was to kind of coincide with the release of Volume 1 on DVD. So Volume 1 comes out, you pick it up, you rent it, you watch it, you then go to the theater to see the conclusion. Pretty smart marketing. But yeah, they did that to kind of line up. So Volume 1, we'll see, Volume 1 was what, October? 6 months, like a 6 month turnaround. That like nowadays a 6 month turnaround on a DVD is kind of crazy. Like I remember seeing clips or like advertisements for movies that were in theaters like a month, 2 months ago already being available to watch like on streaming or on demand or something like that. So even like in 6 months feels kind of short based on kind of the wait times for like stuff to come out on VHS. I remember like sometimes movies would be like out for like a year before they would even like hit like a VHS release or maybe even a DVD release. But yeah, apparently pushed back from February to April to kind of piggyback off of the DVD release for Volume One. Apparently, it had a higher opening weekend than Volume One as well. Let me see here. And then in the MTV Movie Awards, I don't know if it was that year or 2005. This movie won for Best Fight between Uma Thurman and Daryl Hannah. Yeah, like what we'll get to this when we get to the plot, but like the fight between her, the bride, and El Driver they're basically fighting in Bud's trailer, so a very confined space, and they still have an incredible fight despite the kind of limited like space to fight in. So they fight in like the living area. The fight spills out into like the kitchen area. The fight then spills into the like bathroom and hallway. And there's these intense close-ups of like both their faces, and it's intense. It's an incredible, very like visceral fight. It's an incredible fight overall. Like one of my favorite fights probably in film in just general. I don't know where I like. I think probably one of my favorites is like Captain America versus the Winter Soldier from the Winter Soldier. It's kind of like up there with that, just because this one just makes such good use of such a small space. Big themes in this movie are themes of regret. Like, there's a part where Bill is talking to Bud, and Bud's like, "Hey, like, we did that woman wrong. Like, we deserve like whatever is going to happen to us. We deserve this because of like how we treated her." There's a scene, like a whole conversation about regret between Bud and Daryl Hannah's character. Obviously, a bunch of talk about regret from like Bill's character. So that's kind of the overall theme. It's also, like Volume 1, has an amazing soundtrack. You actually just bring that soundtrack up here, go through the tracks here. I think it's got 15 or 16 tracks, depending on which version you listen to. Track 1, like Tarantino does in a lot of his soundtracks, you have some dialogue. So you have A Few Words from the Bride, which is just Uma Thurman. The next track is Goodnight Moon by, I think Chivalry is how it's pronounced. Then you have let me see, Il Tramonto by Ennio Morricone. Ennio Morricone, just a great film composer. Track 4, you have Can't Hardly Stand It by Charlie Fellers. Then track 5, you have Turbia by Lowell L. Manuel. After that, you have Summertime Killer by Louis Bacalov. The Chase is next by Alan Reeves. After that, we have The Legends of Pai Mei, which is just a great scene between David Carradine and Uma Thurman, and it's kind of David Carradine's character of Bill telling the bride about Pai Mei. And basically, he's like, "Hey, like Pai Mei, like was walking down the road, and this guy nodded. Pai Mei nodded at the guy. The guy didn't nod him back, and Pai Mei killed like the guy's entire village for doing so, something like that." After that, we have La Rana by, again, Ennio Morricone. Probably my favorite track on the album is A Satisfied Mind by Johnny Cash. It plays at a really like pivotal scene between Bud and the bride. Just great use of that track by Johnny Cash. After that, we have A Silhouette of Doom, again by Ennio Morricone. Ennio Morricone also shows up, I think, in some of the, at least one track from Inglourious Basterds. Tarantino just definitely knows how to use his scores to like accentuate like his own films, which is just kind of great. Definitely just shows Tarantino's love for film, where he's able to take these scores from other films or songs from other films and make them just feel right at home in his own films. After that, you have About Her by Malcolm McLaren. Happens at a very important part of the movie. After that, you have Truly and Utterly Bill, which is dialogue from David Carradine and Uma Thurman. After that, we have, probably going to mispronounce this name here, you have Malgonia Salarosa, which is by Chingon. And then after that, you have Urmami Bushi by, again, Shunsuke Kichui. I'm completely butchering that now, I apologize. And then at the hidden track, you have Black Mamba by the Wu-Tang Clan. So again, just like Volume 1, an incredible soundtrack slash score. So we got that out of the way, and now we're going to get to the plot of the film. And like Tarantino stuff, a lot of this takes place, at least presented unsequentially, so like kind of out of order. Like it's a hallmark of Tarantino films. But beginning of the film has the bride driving to go to Bill's. She's like, when I get there, I gotta kill Bill. She's like, I roared and I rampaged. That's the kind of her just kind of briefly recapping the events of Volume 1. And then Volume 2 basically opens up with the wedding that is alluded to in Volume 1. And they're like doing like the wedding rehearsal at this small church. It's all black and white. They're basically getting ready to just practice when I think the bride goes out to get some air and Bill is there. And at this point in the movie, she's trying to, or has kind of just like left and doesn't know, and has basically just kind of ran away from Bill. And there's just this huge unease between the two of them. Like it's like the tension in the scene is just like incredible. And then Bill goes into the wedding chapel with them. And he meets like the groom and all this other stuff. Meets a bunch of people there, and it's just this intense scene. And then after that scene is ended, you see a kind of a wide shot outside of the chapel where you have the rest of the divas, like assassins show up, like Bud, Aura, and EC. The rest of the crew show up, and you just hear as soon as they walk in, you just heard like the bride screaming. Just a very intense scene. Um, After that, we have there's an interaction between Bud and Bill. This is when Bud's like, "Hey, we screwed her over really badly. We deserve whatever's gonna happen." Um, and then I think Bill asks him, he's like, "Hey, you still got your sword that I gave you?" And he's like, "No, I pawned that." And he's like, "What? You pawned the Hatoro Hanzo sword?" And he's like, "That thing is priceless." And he was like, "Well, not here it is," and I got it like $300 for it or whatever the price was. And Bill is just basically telling him, he's like, "Hey, like just like be careful. Like she's coming for you. She's coming for everyone, basically." Um, Bud works. I think he works at like a strip club. He goes in there and he's like wearing the hat. And the guy's like, "I told you not to wear that hat anymore." And he like shows up. And he's like the guy's like, "Hey, you're late." He's like, "Yeah, there's nobody here. Like, what's the big deal?" And then like he's got the scene where the owner is talking to this lady and he's got like a calendar. And it's like a dry erase calendar. He's like just erasing Bud's name. He's like, "Oh, you see that? That was your shift. That was your shift. That was your shift." Just erases him, and then one of the other strippers is like, "Hey, like bathroom's like overflowed again, so he's got to clean it up." He basically goes back to his trailer, and this is when he puts on that Johnny Cash track, and the bride rolls up to him and basically like go like open like tries to open the door, and he shoots the bride like through the door with a shotgun. It's not the shot is not full of like buckshot; it's full of like rock salt. So basically, a shotgun shell just full of like I imagine it being like not kosher salt, but like just maybe rock salt being like the salt that they use to like melt ice. But anyways, like oh yeah, you just got hit with like a ton of like rock salt, so it's like right in her chest, and it's obviously like basically just salt in the wound, like burning her up. Um, Bud calls like a friend of his, and he comes over, and they bring like a coffin, and they tie the bride up, and at one point Bud is like either has like an option of a flashlight or a can of mace or like a like bear mace, I think. And he's like, "Hey, like the option is yours. Do you want this, or if you're gonna act up all night, I'll spray this whole can of mace in your eyes and melt your eyeballs out, and like your eyes are gonna be on fire, and you're gonna be still be. It's like basically you're getting buried alive regardless." And he's like, "If you like go in there with a flashlight, or you go in there and you're gonna spray this can of mace." And she like nods to the flashlight. So they throw in this coffin. Basically, they're just like Bud and his friend are like basically like just pounding the nails in, and you see like the light fading from the coffin as soon as they like get it sealed up. It's a terrifying shot, but the way they did the lighting and the cinematography just in that up close shot was just great. They take her to basically a cemetery and basically bury her alive. And then it cuts to Bill and the bride sitting around the fire. Bill's playing his like flute or whatever it was. He's telling her about the legend of Pai Mei, and how I explained earlier. Pai Mei was this monk, and this guy gave him this like insult by not nodding back. Like Pai Mei is like, I think the nod was not returned, and he's like, what wasn't known was why the monk didn't. But he's like, why the monk didn't. The other monk didn't return the nod, but what was known was the consequences. Where Pai Mei's like, "Hey, like give me the head abbot's head as payment for this insult." And then he's like, "Well, then Pai Mei killed like the entire like monastery and a bunch of other stuff." And Pai Mei's trained people, these assassins, for years at this point. So Bill drops the bride off at Pai Mei's to train, and this is when it goes to like the kind of martial arts color grading where it looks kind of like antiquated a little bit. But the bride shows up and Pai Mei's like, "Oh yeah, like you're like pathetic." He like basically just puts the bride through the ringer. And Pai Mei's always doing this thing when he's like he's got like this long white beard. He's always like messing with it like that. But he's training the bride, and the bride's carrying water up these huge flights of steps. Um, Bill at one point it was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have fun like climbing up that thing with buckets of water every day." So she's training with Pai Mei. There's a part where she's like basically does this. It's almost like the Bruce Lee like 1 inch punch, where she's like measuring something. Like say this is the this is like a tree she's punching, so she measures it like that, and then it's like um, does training like that. At one point, she's eating with Pai Mei, and she tries to like just grab food out of a bowl, and Pai Mei like smacks it out of her hand. He's like, if you want to eat like a dog, I'll like throw you out. Like you can like sleep outside with them or whatever it was. And then she like learns to like not learns, but like her hands are all messed up from doing this training. So she eventually gets the hang of the chopsticks with her hand being all messed up. And you can definitely tell in that Pai Mei does that thing with his beard again, where there is kind of a respect building up there, even though Pai Mei is a very kind of harsh like master. So then it flashes or cuts forward to the bride back in the kind of coffin, buried alive still, and she remembers the kind of the 1 inch punch. So she like measures to the top of the coffin and then is punching and punching and punching, and her hands are all messed up. But eventually, she does get out of the coffin, and you see her basically just walking. Essentially, she's walking back to Bud's trailer, and I don't know if this scene in Top Gun. I'm gonna go kind of on a tangent with Top Gun Maverick here. There was a scene in Top Gun Maverick that almost feels like it could have been an homage to this movie. So Top Gun Maverick, they do the weird flight, the test flight at the beginning of the movie, where Tom Cruise's character, like Maverick, has to eject, and you see him walk into a diner completely like worse for wear, like looking terrible. Or I don't know if I used the worse for wear expression correctly, but he walks into this diner completely exhausted, looking like dusty from like basically like really beat up, and he just like points at a glass of water and drinks a glass of water. In Kill Bill Volume 2, you see the bride bloodied and like dirty from like being like buried alive, walk into a diner, sits down, and she's like, "May I have a glass of water?" Just kind of like the scene in Top Gun Maverick feels like a throwback to that in a way. Sorry, excuse me. Anyhow, the next scene, so we have basically Bud, I should mention, had called Elle. He's like, hey, like, I got the bride. She's done. I got her sword. If you want to buy the sword from me, it's going to be $1 million or something like that. So Elle drives out to Bud's with a suitcase full of money. And so she goes into the trailer, and they have this conversation. Bud makes some, like, margaritas or something. And he's like, "Hey, is that my money there?" And she's like, "Yeah, like it's like $1 million. It's like a red bag." He makes some margaritas, and they sit down and they start having a conversation. Bud's character, this is like a great conversation. He's like, "Which are you filled with, or do you have more of?" And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Well, usually when warriors fight, and they have no one to fight left or anymore, they're filled with either relief or regret." And he's like, and then he also mentioned something about like the number one killer of people is retirement, because when you don't have a job to do anymore, there's like nothing left to do, and you kind of like feel like unfulfilled or something like that. And she's like, so it's between relief and regret. And she's like, I don't know, I guess a bit of both. And he's like, yeah, you probably feel a little bit of both, but you probably feel one more than the other. Which one is it? And she's like, regret. So she says that she feels more regret than relief for the bride being presumably dead at this point. Um, so they have their conversation, and then or they continue that, and then Bud goes over to open the suitcase, and there's a bunch of money in there. So he's like, ah, yeah, he takes a bunch of it out. It's like counting, like doing the like what's it called? Uh, rifling the bills, like that. But then eventually he pulls a couple layers of bills off, and there is a snake in the bag, and it jumps up and just bites him, and he's like freaking out, trying to like wash it off, and like it's basically a black mamba was in this bag. And then Elle starts talking to him more. She's like, yeah, like I found that guy on my way here, and she pulls a notepad out. She's like, I looked him up online, and it's like kind of like she's just like the black mamba like is like death is guaranteed with this thing. Its venom acts like if you get bit on the thumb or the ankle, you can like die within like a few hours. But bites to the torso or the face, death can be like applied in 20 minutes. And then she's like, well, the amount of venom that it can inject is like 100 milligrams or something like that. And she's like, the amount of venom in the Black Mama's bite is gargantuan. It's just kind of funny because she makes a comment of the word gargantuan. She's like, yeah, the amount of blood venom in this snake is gargantuan. She's like, I really like that word. Never got to use it in a sentence until now. So she's basically like reading this thing, basically reading how Bud is basically screwed. He's dead at this, basically dead. And then she's like, "Let me answer your question more thoroughly." Like she's like, "Yeah, I feel regret. I feel regret that one of the greatest warriors I've ever known like met her end at like a hillbilly. I don't know if she called him a hillbilly or what it was. A hillbilly alkie like you." And then he dies. She puts the little notebook back in her pocket. Bill calls and Bill's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, like Bud's dead. She left the bride left a snake in here, and but I'll be like I can come over or whatever." So she picks up the Hanzo sword because like basically like Bud took the Hanzo sword um, from the bride at this point, and then Daryl Hannah's character is getting ready to leave. She opens the door, and you see like a close up of her face, and then you just see like the bride walks in, drop kicks her, and they have this huge knockout drag out fight in this trailer home, and it's a fantastic fight. Like I said, very confined spaces, but you have them swinging swords at each other, like hitting each other, like with like I think like one of them grabs like a lamp at one point, like a long stem lamp, and they're like hitting like each other like that. I think like the bride grabs a can of like tobacco, like spit, and throws it like all over Daryl Hannah's character's face, and it's kind of funny because Daryl Hannah's character even like is just like gross. And they continue fighting. They fight in the bathroom. Um, like it spills into the kitchen and then the bathroom. You got the brides like trying to drown her in like the toilet, and Elle actually like flushes it so she can breathe. They continue fighting, and then at one point, you see like a golf club bag, and there's a sword in there, and the bride opens it up, and it says it's got like a message to Bud on it from Bill. It's like to Bill to Bud from the only man I ever loved to the only man I've ever loved, Bill. And so Bill lied about pawning the sword. So Elle at this point has the bride's sword, and the bride has Bud's sword, and Elle's like, "Where do you get that? Or what is that?" She's like, "Bud's Hanzo sword." She's like, "I thought he sold it." And she's like, "Yeah, I guess that makes him a liar, huh?" And then this is like so they're at opposite ends of a hallway. There's these just intense close-ups of each of their faces, and it's like insanely intense. And there's this scene where the bride is like, "Hey, between us girls, like, what did you say to Pai Mei to have him yank your eye out?" She's like, "Oh, I called him a miserable old fool." There's like flashback to uh, Elle getting trained and her just like getting her eye ripped out by Pai Mei. And then she's like laughing. She's like, "Yeah, but she's like, you know what happened after that?" She's like, "I killed Pai Mei. I poisoned his fish heads." She's like, "I killed your master, and now I'm gonna kill you." And you just have this like Uma Thurman's like facial expressions in the scene are just like intense. Like you see her like lip quivering and like it's just like yeah, Uma Thurman is like absolutely like Kill Bill Volume 1 is a great movie for her. This one actually like her acting chops are like on full display in this one, even more so than the first. But they have a fight, and then basically what happens is the bride yanks out um, Elle's other eye. Elle's just like now totally blind, stumbling around this trailer, like just screaming and cussing, and probably like even if the snake wasn't in there, like I don't know if she would even be able to find her way out of the trailer with being completely blind. But it's implied that after the bride leaves, the snake probably like goes after her instead. And then, sorry, right before that, there's another cutaway where in Kill Bill Volume 1, whenever the bride's name is mentioned, I think it does it like once or twice, it's censored. And then in this movie, we find out that her name is Beatrix Kiddo. So that's why whenever, like, in certain movies, she's like, "Hey, kiddo, what's up?" Like, stuff like that. There's a flashback to her at school, but it's actually Uma Thurman's character. Then she drives to Bill's, and it's revealed, like at the end of the first movie, where he's talking to, I think Sophie is the character's name, that the daughter is still alive. So the daughter is like what, like 7 now or something. I don't know if it's 7. It may have been like 4 or something like that. But they go there, and it's revealed she's there to kill Bill, and now you have Bill and the daughter playing with like toy guns, and it's just a complete shock, of course, to the bride or Beatrix. And then there's another flashback of when she found out she was pregnant. She tried to get away from Bill, and there's another fight in a hotel, or it's like a fight between the bride or Beatrix and like this like assassin. It's kind of a humorous fight because she's like, hey, I don't want to fight you. I just found that I'm pregnant. She's like, oh, you're lying, and like the bride tosses her like the pregnancy test, and she's like reading it, and then she's like, so what do we do? She's like, well, just go home. We're gonna do the same, and it's kind of funny. So like, there's a whole shotgun blast in the door, and the assassin basically walks out the door, closes it, looks through the door, and is like, congratulations, and just leaves. It's done as like comedic effect. When I saw it back for that double feature, people were laughing during that scene because it's pretty humorous. But then it cuts back forward to the bride and Bill. There's a great conversation between them. He shoots her with like a truth serum, and then they have the great speech about. He's like, I've always loved superheroes. Is what Bill is saying. He's like, one of my favorites is Superman. He's like, you got superheroes that have alter egos that put on a costume and like fight crime or whatever. He's like, you have Spider-Man, and when when Peter Parker puts on his costume, he becomes Spider-Man. When Batman puts on or when Bruce Wayne puts on his costume, he becomes Batman. He's like, but one of my favorites is Superman because Superman, basically the whole thing is the inverse of the secret identity, where Superman is the actual person, Clark Kent is the alter ego basically, or the disguise, and he's like yeah, Superman the most powerful like man in the world or galaxy maybe even, and his critique of it is Clark Kent is how he sees humans, like weak, subservient, and all that kind of stuff. Um, so Bill and the bride continue talking. They have their like fight, and she actually should have rewind during the initial scene where he's describing Pai Mei, when he's like playing the flute. He talks about the 5-point palm exploding heart technique, and he's like, nobody's ever learned this technique. And okay, now we can go back to where we were with Bill and the bride. They had their fight, and the bride is actually like does the thing, and he's like, Pai Mei taught you the 5-point like palm exploding heart technique, and she's like, yeah. So probably like so like out of like, and like it just shows like how like dedicated the bride is, I guess, because if nobody had ever learned it, and I think like there was a huge amount of respect between Pai Mei and the bride. Initially, like Pai Mei obviously looked down on the bride, but then like she was like trained well, listened, and then like unlike Elle, where she like disrespected the. So basically, there's like a mutual respect between the two of them, or at least was, because Elle killed him. And the thing is, basically, with this technique, you walk 5 steps, your heart explodes, and you die. And then so basically, it's like kind of Bill's like, all right, time to get this over with, and he like just like takes his 5 steps, dies, and then goes and Beatrix and daughter basically kind of live happily ever after thing. Oh, I forgot to mention that she does go to somebody that like knew Bill. So the way she tracks him down, I think it's Michael Parks playing this character, plays this. She goes to Mexico and talks to this guy who kind of explains where Bill is. Kind of forgot about that, but goes there, and that's kind of what happens with that. But yeah, and then that is the end of the film. Like it's an incredible film. Like back to back, it like works like a lot better than waiting like 6 months between movies. I still really want to see if Tarantino ever shows it more often. The whole bloody affair, because I want to see like how that is cut together to be one major movie. So yeah, the whole bloody affair, I would really like to see that. I would kind of want them to put it out on like Blu-ray or something at some point. Don't know if they ever will, but yeah, but Kill Bill Volume 2 is just fantastic. Like I said, completely different in tone from the first. First one, very heavy on the action, the martial arts. This one, more heavy on the character development and the kind of dialogue between characters and things like that. So yeah, there is a huge tonal shift between the movies. So I'm really glad they split them up into 2, because initially they were planning on maybe doing one movie, and it would have been like 4 something hours, and then the producers were like, hey, like split this into 2 movies, and then Tarantino decided to do that because then he didn't have to do any kind of like, if he did it in one movie, there would be a lot of cuts he would have to make. So this allowed him to do that without doing a lot of cuts. But yeah, that is going to do it for this video. We'll be back in a week covering a video game, and then after that, we'll be jumping into 2005. But yeah, week from now, we got our 2004 video game, and then the rest of the decade upcoming. Again, that's going to do it for now. So thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.